Just don't stand in front of with the mic. Okay. A very good morning to Kwan Leong, fellow judges, and teachers and friends. My name is Divya, and this is Wei Heng.
Good morning.
And today we are going to be your presenters, and we will be presenting an issue that occurred in Rjukan, Norway. As for the table of contents, we have Rjukan's background,
Latar belakang Rjukan,
main issue,
isu terutama,
Rjukan's solution to the issue,
kaedah penyelesaian Rjukan,
effects regarding to biology,
kesan dari segi biologi,
how does our body react to certain diseases,
cara badan memberi reaksi kepada penyakit tertentu,
our suggestion to the issue,
cara penyelesaian kita mengenai isu tersebut,
and finally, model and diagrams.
model dan rajah.
Before we get into the main presentation, look at Rjukan's background. Rjukan used to be a significant industrial center in Telemark. The town was established in between 1905 and 1916 when Norsk Hydro started saltpeter production there. Besides that, Rjukan was chosen because of Rjukan Falls, a 104-meter waterfall provided an easy way of generating large quantities of electricity. The person who came up with this idea was Rjukan Falls. The person who came up with this idea to use Rjukan Falls was Sam I, the founder of Hydro.
Okey, so ini adalah latar belakang Rjukan. Rjukan merupakan pusat pertengahan industri Telemark. Mana tersebut didudukkan di antara tahun 1905 hingga ke 1916. Pada masa Norsk Hydro telah memulakan produksi saltpeter sejenis baja. Rjukan dipilih disebab oleh air dari Rjukan yang tinggi yang 104 meter tinggi. Air terjun tersebut telah menyumbang kaedah yang senang untuk menjanakan kuantiti elektrisiti yang besar. Idea untuk mengoptimumkan air terjun Rjukan tersebut adalah Sam Hyde mengasas Hydro.
Now, we'll move on to the main problem. Rjukan and its 3,400 inhabitants spent half a year in perpetual shadow cast by a mountain range by the low-lying winter sun, leading both the physical and mental health issues.
Isu terutama Rjukan. Rjukan mempunyai 1,400 penduduk yang harus menghadapi kegelapan selama separuh tahun, adanya dari September hingga ke Mac. Ini merupakan akibat bayang yang terbentuk daripada pendudukan matahari yang rendah dan banjaran gunung yang mengelilingi bandar Rjukan. Kesan-kesan permainan tersebut adalah isu kesihatan fizikal dan kesihatan mental.
So what is Rjukan's solution to this problem? They decided to install sun mirrors called Helios to reflect the sun on their own, to reflect the sunlight to the town. On February of 2013, the heliostats were installed onto the mountain walls at 742 meters over the sea level and about 450 meters above the Rjukan Market Square. The entire system cost about $825,000 to build and stands at around the same size as 2-car garages. The heliostats are powered by solar and wind energy, and the sensors track path of the sun and positions the mirror to reflect onto the city's main square.
Okey, kaedah penyelesaian Rjukan. Rjukan telah menggunakan refleksi cahaya matahari dengan penggunaan Helios. Pada Februari 2013, cermin matahari iaitu Helios telah dipasangkan atas gunung yang 742 meter tinggi dan atas aras laut. Sekurang-kurangnya 450 meter tinggi dari pasar pusat Rjukan. Kos sistem tersebut adalah 825,000 wang Amerika Syarikat untuk dibinakan. Saiznya sebesar 2 garas kereta. Dan ini adalah keperincian mengenai Helios. Helios akan menjanakan kuasa melalui tenaga cahaya matahari dan angin. Sesar yang terdapat atas sistem tersebut akan menjejakkan posisi matahari dan memantulkan cahaya matahari ke pusat pandang.
On to the next issue, how does the lack of sunlight affect our mental health and our body immunity? Regarding the physical health, it can cause rickets, insomnia, cutaneous form of tuberculosis. Regarding mental health, it can cause depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, mood imbalance, and seasonal affective disorder.
Okey, ini adalah kesan dari segi biologi. Bagaimanakah kekurangan cahaya matahari akan memberi kesan negatif terhadap kesihatan minda dan badan? Dari segi fizikal, ia akan menyebabkan penyakit riket, insomnia dan juga penyakit tuberkulosis. Dari segi mental, ia akan menyebabkan kemurungan, keresahan, penyakit skizofrenia, ketidakseimbangan mood dan gangguan efektif musik.
How does our body react to certain diseases? The most common one is flu. While the symptoms cause discomfort to the person, the symptoms are actually the immune system's way of protecting us from further harm. And a runny nose also known as nasal congestion. A runny nose helps wash germs from the nose and sinuses. And coughing and sneezing. The mucus traps offending viruses which are quickly expelled from the body through coughing and sneezing. Next, as for fever, viruses are sensitive to temperature changes and cannot survive above normal body heat. And next, we have muscle aches and pain. The immune system pulls protein from muscles, leaving our muscles achy.
Okey, bagaimanakah badan kita bereaksi kepada penyakit-penyakit tertentu? Yang utama sekali ialah sesama. Selepas itu ialah kesesakan atau hidung berair. Hidung berair membantu menghalaukan kuman dari hidung dan sinus. Selepas itu ialah batuk dan bersin. Okey, lendir akan memerahkan virus yang dapat dikeluarkan dari badan melalui batuk dan bersin. Untuk demam, hal ini demikian kerana virus yang sensitif kepada perubahan suhu dan tidak dapat bertahan melebihi suhu badan yang biasa. Dan akhir sekali, ia juga akan menyebabkan kesakitan otot. Ini adalah cara imun sistem kita mengambil protein daripada otot kita dan menyebabkan kesakitan otot.
So our suggestion to this issue is, we made a model that required us to change the shape of Our solution to this issue is, we made a model that requires us to change the shape of the mirrors. So, for example, from plain mirrors to convex mirrors. Okay, by placing them in a certain angle. Okay, so by placing them in a certain angle this way, instead of the normal one is like this way, right? Yeah. So we will show the model later. So it's placing them in a certain angle that we can expand the area that receives sunlight. Yeah.
Cara penyelesaian kita mengenai isu tersebut adalah kita telah menciptakan model yang hanya memerlukan kita untuk mengubahkan bentuk cermin dari cermin biasa hingga ke cermin cekung. Dengan posisi dan sudut kecenderungan yang tertentu, kita boleh memantulkan cahaya matahari secara rata dan luas. Okay, so we continue here with English. So this is the ray diagram of a convex mirror. And as you can see, the small dot there, that would be the sunlight. And it will be reflected to the convex mirror. And as you can see from this arrow, all these areas will be affected. So the only downside to this solution is that photons, also known as light particles, will not be able to, it will not be concentrated enough. So this basically causes or lack of concentration in sunlight. And this will be our proposed model. Since there's 3 of them, we can actually distribute it at a larger area. And all we have to do is just to change the shape of the mirrors from a plane mirror to a convex mirror. I'm so sorry. Okay, this will be the before and after effects of our model. As you can see, it is not a final. It's not a fixed result, but it is our estimation of what will happen if we did replace the mirrors. And this will be the side view. And according to our calculations, this will be the area affected instead, rather than just the central town square. And that is all for us. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you so much to the group of Thunder Cookies. Just a little bit of explanation for the teachers. It's not quite understanding the ray diagrams just now. So instead of using a plane mirror whereby the angle is just quite fixed, they decided to change to a convex mirror because convex mirror can diverge more sunlight. So instead of using 3 plane mirrors, this group actually decided to use 3 convex mirrors because convex mirrors can cover even larger area compared to a plane mirror. So that was the first group's suggestion. So we're going to proceed to the second group right now. Before that, judges, any question for them? Okay, judges, okay, yeah? So we can proceed to the second group. So we'll proceed to the second group, which is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Really appreciate it if you guys can actually be on the stage instead, okay? If you really have to stand here in front, go too close to the table is open. Can't see the slide.
Hello.
This is a test.
Good afternoon, fellow judges, teachers, Puan Leong, and fellow friends. We are Group TMNT, and we will be presenting the solution to solve Rjukan's problem. Before I start presenting, we'll present in both languages, which is English and VM. So, izinkan saya membentangkan bahagian sejarah dalam bahasa Melayu. Okay. Pengenalan. Rjukan merupakan sebuah bandar yang terletak di kawasan pergunungan Norway. Pada awalnya, kedudukan ini menjadikan pengusahaan tenaga hidroelektrik sebagai kegiatan utama Rjukan. Kepentingan Rjukan adalah pada tahun 1930, sebuah kilang penghasilan hidrogen dan air berat dibina di Denmark, kawasan pinggir Rjukan. Jana kuasa hidroelektrik juga ditempatkan di Denmark. Air berat diperlukan dalam pembinaan bom atom. Hal ini mengambil perhatian orang Jerman yang ingin menghasilkan tenaga nuklear sendiri untuk digunakan dalam perang. Sabotaj air berat Norway disasarkan ke stesen jarak kuasa Weimar oleh kuasa bersekutu pada 18 Oktober 1942. Sabotaj ini merangkumi beberapa serangan. Akhirnya, pada 20 Februari 1944, kuasa bersekutu berjaya memusnahkan peralatan kilang Weimar. Kesimpulannya, tanpa operasi sabotaj air berat di Rjukan, keputusan Perang Dunia II mungkin berbeza sekali. Rjukan bersama dengan bandar Rotterdam yang berdekatan kini menjadi tapak warisan dunia UNESCO disebabkan sejarah perindustrian mereka. Problem statement for Rjukan now. Rjukan's position in the valleys of 2 mountains gives it a complicated relationship with the sun. The residents live in the shadows without sunlight for 6 months a year. 3 giant mirrors were built on mountain to reflect light to the town. However, residents. Okay, guys, now talking about why do people in Rjukan need sunlight? Because, like, if they don't need it, then why are we even doing this project? Am I right? Okay. So, the importance of sunlight can be divided into two, which is mental health and physical health. So, for mental health, adequate exposure to sunlight will increase the release of hormone serotonin in our brain. Serotonin is associated with improvement in mood, calmness, and focus. Thus, this will increase the net happiness of the Rjukan people who are prone to seasonal depression. Physical health, your body produces vitamin D naturally when it's directly exposed to sunlight. Vitamin D has numerous functions, including reducing the risk of illness, heart disease, and cancer. Okay, so hey guys. So when our group was discussing on what solution that we wanted to implement for this town, Rjukan. So our first part was the same concept as what Rjukan has applied now, which is the 3 giant mirrors to somehow implement a solution that reflects more light to the town of Rjukan. But then we wondered if 3 large mirrors that are built by this town that costed $800,000 only reflected to an area that's even smaller than this lab, then how many mirrors are we going to build to actually provide sunlight to all the residents of Rjukan? So that's when our solution today hit us. What if we collected the sunlight from the top of the hill and transmitted it to the people in the town below instead of reflecting it? So that is what brought us to our solution today. Our solution is called the sunlight transmitter of Rjukan, which is a system designed to collect sunlight from the top of the mountain because the mountain receives sunlight and then transfer it to the town of Rjukan using fiber optics. Okay, so before I explain on our model right here, first let's understand the concepts of physics that our project will apply. So there are 2 components, there are 2 main components which functions play a big role in the functioning of our product right here, which is the fiber optic cables and the convex lens. So the first component is the fiber optic cables. So if you can see these are the fiber optic cables that I've gotten. So fiber optics are fibers made out of silica that consists of an inner glass core of high density and an outer cladding of lower optical densities. That the inside of the fiber optic is denser than the outside layer. So this is actually very important for it to fulfill its function. Why? Because fiber optic cables transmit light using the concept of total internal reflection. And as you can see on the slide, total internal reflection of light only happens when light moves from a denser medium to a less dense medium. So that is basically how the fiber optic cables function. So thus, for the cables, light will enter the inner glass core at one end and will undergo a series of total internal reflection. So the light will move in a zigzag form throughout the entire fiber optic strand, and it will reflect on the surface of the outer cladding and will come out at the other end of the fiber optics. So that is how this component functions. So yeah, our next component is the convex lens. As you can see right here, it is in the shape of 2 C's that are connected to each other. This shape is actually very important for it to fulfill its function, which allows the light rays that pass through it to converge or focus to a point. And that point is what we call the focal point. The distance between the lens and that focal point is called the focal length of the mirror. So these terms will be important when I'm explaining the model later. Okay. So now that we've understood all the concepts that is involved, let me now elaborate more on our model. So the main component of our model is what we call the sunlight collector. The sunlight collector, it consists of a convex mirror at one end and a fiber optic that is stuck at the other end. So these two components are set at a distance of 5 centimeters from each other using this piece of card right here. Why 5 cm, you may ask? It's because the focal length, as what I've explained just now, the focal length of this convex mirror is 5 centimeters. That's why we use the measurement of 5 centimeters. And this sun collector is placed at the top of the mountain. This is actually a replica of what I have right there. Yeah. And the top of the paper mountain that will receive the flashlight later when we demonstrate to you. And then the light will be transmitted to the town right here. So in our model later, when we show the demonstration, the flashlight will simulate the sunlight that will be received on our actual sunlight collector. So now next, the convex lens of the sunlight collector, what it does is what I've explained just now, it converges or focuses the rays of light to the focal point. And at this focal point is where we put the ends of the fiber optic. Why? So we can maximize the amount of sunlight that will be transmitted because all the rays are focused on that one point. So the light that comes out is as much as it's possible. And the next component is the fiber optics of the sun collector. And this is to transmit the sunlight from the top of the mountain of Rjukan to the bottom, where town is. And straws, if you can see right here, we have straws here. These straws simulate the sunlight street lamps that we will be building around the town of Rjukan. And these sunlight street lamps will emit light. So all the citizens around the city can receive sunlight, just like how you see street lamps on the streets. Okay, now but before we move on to the real life application, let us show you guys a demonstration on how our model actually works. So you see when Kavi here shines her flashlight, which simulates the sunlight, to the mirror, the light travels here, and if you can see, the light actually comes out of each lamp. See? Light actually comes out. It comes out here and it comes out everywhere. Okay, so now I'll pass it to Nat to continue with her explanation on the real life application.
Did you know that fiber optics have been used to transmit sunlight in the past?
Yeah.
Although fiber optic is not commonly heard of, it's usually used in telecommunications. So some buildings use a system called solar fiber optic lighting to allow natural sunlight to shine in rooms without access to windows. Next, our solution incorporates a similar concept but with a system specifically designed to solve Rjukan's problem. The sunlight transmitter is also of a much bigger scale to accommodate Rjukan's area of 3.12 km. Why am I saying this? This is basically to prove that this is possible to carry out, so it's not some new invention that requires a lot of research, and it's an application of something we already know, but at a bigger scale to solve our problem here.
So as you can see, sensors will be placed on the sun collector to track the direction of sunlight throughout the day. Now these sensors actually already exist and is being used right now for the mirrors in Rjukan to reflect sunlight to the town.
This is to ensure that the sunlight rays are directly facing the sun collector, so that maximum amount of sunlight can be transmitted into the fiber optic cables. The fiber strands will be buried underground, similar to the fiber optics in telecommunication. This will ensure that the strands are immune to wind and ice damage, as they are buried below the layer where the soil freezes. Light will be emitted via sunlight street lights built in the city. These street lamps will first be built near public and commercial areas, such as parks and city centers. With time and proper funding, the street lamps will be then built along streets, near houses, and so on, until sunlight can be accessed everywhere around the city. Thus, the people of Rjukan can finally achieve sunlight all year round. Sekarang, izinkan saya bertutur dalam bahasa Melayu untuk bahagian konklusi dan pendidikan moral. Konklusinya, iktibar yang boleh diambil daripada masyarakat Rjukan adalah kita mestilah mengamalkan nilai berterima kasih untuk bekalan cahaya matahari di Malaysia. Cahaya matahari yang berarti dalam keterlaluan dan sangat mudah di sini adalah terhad dan sangat diinginkan oleh masyarakat Rjukan. Jelas bahawa kita bertuah untuk menjadi warga negara Malaysia. With that, thank you so much.
All right, once again, good job for this particular group and congratulations. As I said, I was quite surprised when I get updates from each and every group every single week on how they decided to do the solution for this particular Rjukan Norway. So without much delaying, so I will proceed to the next group. But just for students to keep track, please remember I do put a timer in front of my laptop for you guys to keep track yourself. Okay? So the next group, we're going to welcome the group Little Einstein to the front. Yeah. And the fact that
Yes, yes. Honourable Judges, you can credit the other group for the aesthetic model, but what you're going to credit us specifically is why our model is the best alternative and why it's the most practical alternative in this situation. But before that, we just want to greet the Honourable Judges here who have taken their time to look at our showcase and presentation. Thank you for being here, and also thank you to our physics teacher who has been guiding us all along. But before we get into our physics project, let's just introduce our team members here because they have also really contributed to this project. So for the speakers, we have Binika Shani, Vichika, and Vidarshana Vinaya. For the unit producers, we have Daryl, and lastly for the editor, Wanwei, Qingxiang, Alex, and Sujajun. But unfortunately, they will not be here. But we will still like to credit them because they have also equally contributed to this project. So there are a few subjects: biology, third mathematics, and fourth English. So now we just want to talk about the status quo that's currently happening in this situation. Because we have to acknowledge that right now, in the Norwegian town called Rjukan, the citizens there can only see the sunlight, but they are unable to feel the warmth. So judges, we want you to imagine living in the shadows, like sure you can see the sunlight, but you're unable to feel the warmth. We just want you to imagine how bad it is to live in a situation like that. We think that these individuals are constantly living in the shadows. But furthermore, we think that the situation, we'll just elaborate on what the situation currently looks like there. They're located between two mountains. First, Mount Gustavshavn, which is 1,800 meters at peak, which blocks a lot of the sunlight. But the other mirror there is unnamed, but it's at 142 peaks in the north side. And the mirror currently that is in Rjukan is at 415 meters. Next, we just want to talk about the past actions that have been taken by the people of Rjukan. Because we just want to clearly point out is that other groups told you what actions they have already took. But they don't tell you exactly why is it that this solution isn't the best alternative, and why is it that we still have to improvise on this situation. So we'll be the first group here to tell you why is it that we need to improvise on the current situation. There are a few things that these people have already done. Firstly, they tried to build a cable car up to the mountain in order for people to get sunlight. But we'll tell you why this is so inefficient. Because you cannot possibly send 3,400 people up to the mountain every day. This means that a large amount of people aren't able to get the sunlight that they deserve. But first, we're going to point out that there's something that's extremely elitist because only rich people will be able to get the sunlight. We want to imagine what about the poor people who are on the ground who simply can't afford to take a cable car. But secondly, we think like the reason as to why simply building a reflecting mirror with a Helios where it's a device that follows the sunlight and tracks the movement of the sunlight. Why is this something that is just insufficient to provide for these individuals? Because it's simple. This solution is only able to cover a certain area of the Rjukan town. This means only the people who are in the city center are able to get sunlight. We question what about the people who are living further away from this town? So we're going to tell you exactly why is it that we can solve this solution and provide not just sunlight but warmth to the people of the Rjukan city.
Okay, hi teachers. So I'm Daryl and I'm one of the unique producers for our project. So the first thing that we're going to clarify here is how we are actually going to create more sun, how we're going to disperse more sunlight to the people so that people can feel the warmth. So the first thing that we're going to need is that we're going to need two plain mirrors that you can see from the picture above. And we will also need a concave lens to be able to disperse the sunlight. And it is very important here to note is how concave lens actually work in physics. So we can see how when you have like light rays going through the lens of the concave lens, the light rays will now be dispersed in the surrounding, which means that you're able to cover more area, which means that also more people now can feel the warmth of the sunlight, right? Now, why is it that concave lens needs to be used compared to convex lens? Because we need to understand how convex lens actually work. This convex lens, when the light rays pass through these lenses, what you would have is that you would have a focus point of the sunlight, which means that the sunlight will not be focused on one point and the other area will not have the sunlight anymore, right? Compared to concave lens, what it does is that it's going to disperse the light on the area around it. And furthermore, why is this like practically like not visible? Because we think that convex lens, when you go to a camping trip, let's say we go hiking, you will realize that whenever you need fire, what you do is that you take a magnifying glass and you shine the light to the sticks in order to like light the stick on fire, right? We think that magnifying glass is convex lens, and so if you're going to do this for the people in Rjukan, what this does is that you're either going to make them barbecue, or second, you're going to make them stay on the ocean because of the heat that you're going to be giving them. And that's why we say that the concave lens is far more better because you're able to evenly distribute the light and the heat to these people. So now this is how our model actually looks like. So the first thing you can see here is that the sunlight will aim towards the first plane mirror up there, and the plane mirror will now reflect the light towards the concave lens, and the concave lens will then disperse the light to the people and also to the second mirror you can see on that bigger mountain, so that you're able to cover the entire city square and also the entire Rjukan city as a whole. So now we can see from the practical model that we had here today is the model that we want to propose, is that you have like two mountains over here, and this, so we have like two mirrors, and what this does is that, for example, right now in status quo, what we have is just a mirror like this to shine, and you can see how it's insufficient because you will still have areas like this which are untouched. So now when you add the concave lens, when you add this concave lens on this mirror over here, when you're able to amplify the effect, for example, you see. If you see over here, when you put the concave lens near to the mirror, you're able to get a more amplifier effect, which will then provide more sunlight towards the people. Now you guys can come up here and see if it's needed. And then the reason why over here it's not that bright is because of the lack of equipment. So if we have a bigger concave lens, what this does is that you'll get a bigger dispersion, but because right now the concave lens is smaller than what's actually needed, so the effect of it is it's when we're going to apply this in real life, of course you'll get the concave lens that is much bigger, but the people can actually the sun. Okay. I don't need to compare what other alternatives and other teams given us. The first thing told us that they want to use convex lens, but we told you how that's going to deter the people because they would get barbecued, right? Then the second team comes up here and tells us they're going to use fiber optics. But I don't think I understand what the problem is, because the problem is that they're able to see the sunlight, but they're unable to feel the warmth. And it's only on our team that we actually provided the warmth, because the UV light only gets reflected when you use plane mirrors. So the UV light reflects the plane mirror, and the plane mirror will then reflect the UV light to the people. And the UV light is what makes people feel warm, is what gives them the warm feeling. But when you use fiber optics, what it does is just like your street lamps. Your street lamps, what you're going to do is just light up the place. You're only going to get light, but there's not going to be any UV light. People won't feel warm. Because the fiber optics is made out of glass, the glass will then absorb all the UV light and it doesn't have any reflection purposes. So it means that the problem still exists. Whereas ours, we give you the mirror that is able to reflect the UV light, and that's actually how we're going to solve the issue. Then the next slide, which is some preemptive problems that we want to find. So the first thing is we want to ask us is that how are we going to react if the light that is reflected is too bright? What the luminous intensity is too bright, right? So we have the Helios stats, which is that because the Helios stat is able to track the sunlight, so we are able to move the mirror accordingly. So if you feel like if there's too much light, then we can like move the mirrors somewhere else, but the light won't be that strong. Then the second question then, so how are we going to make sure that we are always able to absorb the light and reflect the light, especially when the earth rotates and you have like the sun setting down and rising up. So just like the same model, we will have solar panels on the bottom. There's a sensor that actually attracts, it can feel the light, and it will then rotate the mirror towards the light source so that you are able to continue reflecting the light. And this is also what is happening in sales, but what we're doing is that we're multiplying the number of mirrors that you have right now. So you can use an analogy for this, is just like a plant sunflower. The sunflower moves according to like where the sunlight is. That's what we're doing right now. Then I'll pass the floor to Vinaya to tell you guys so important to have sunlight and not just your street lamp light.
Hello. So I'll be presenting on the biology part of this. Okay. So let's talk about the importance of sunlight. There are three aspects to it: mental health, physical health, and for plants. So for mental health, the effects are improved mood and higher quality sleep. This is due to the fact that sunlight stimulates the secretion of serotonin, which will help, which is also known as happiness chemical, which will make us happier. Secondly, physical health, stronger bones and lower blood pressure. This is due to vitamin D. Vitamin D reduces the risk of diseases such as osteoporosis and recurrence. Secondly, as we all know, plants need sunlight for photosynthesis. Okay, so we need to talk about why the Rjukan people urgently need the sunlight. This is due to the fact that if they don't have sunlight, seasonal affective disorder will come in, and when autumn comes, depression occurs. Secondly, there can also be a hormone imbalance among the people, and the hormone in particular is melatonin, which controls the sleep-wake cycle. So what does sunlight mean to living things? Changes in temperature and rays that contain ultraviolet influence the habitat of the mountain. Living things which need sunlight for their living habitat will get an advantage, which is the vitamin D, and plants can conduct photosynthesis. But the living things that don't get the sunlight will have a disadvantage, which is their food chain will be disrupted. It also influences the microorganisms that we can't see in the same effect that its food chain will be disrupted too. Okay, yeah. For the next part, what is the importance of sunlight to human? So basically, if we have sunlight, it maintains our body regulation, and this is where the homeostasis process comes in. So this helps us regulate physical and also chemical factors to the internal environment so that we don't feel too hot when we get the sunlight. Next is, why does plant need sunlight? The first point is so that they can go through photosynthesis process, because that's the main thing for plants, so that they can get food. So if this photosynthesis process is not done, plants will not have food and they will starve. And finally, what happens if plants don't get the right amount of sunlight? So in short, if plants don't get the right amount of sunlight, they will suffer. They either be less efficient or they either die because they don't have enough sunlight, or it's either too much. Yeah, so next for the maths part, I'll pass it to Pilika. Guys, this is just the cost of our models. It's divided into two, which is the model we did now, which is a very low price, and the cost of our actual model, which is lesser than the model made now in Rjukan. Yeah. And the next part will be our funding mechanism to this project. Other groups came in here and giving many ideas on how to improve this project, but then they didn't come up with a funding mechanism on how do they get funds to do this project and apply this project in Rjukan. So here are some of our ideas, which is we can get funds from all the NGOs in Rjukan and the help of many United Nations charters, which includes United Nations General Assembly, World Health Assembly, Economy and Social Council, and the UNEP, which is the United Nations Environmental Program. And we also can have donations and charities to collect funds for us to make this project happen and to get sunlight for the people in Rjukan. And the last one is corporate social responsibilities. And yeah, that's all from Team Little Lens time. Yeah. Actually, the Convex Lens will be in the rail project. It will be adjust. It's a mechanism where you follow the ways that the sun goes. If the sun goes inside, the convex lens will go that side. It's yeah, it's actually concave lens. Concave lens. Yeah. Yes. Oh. Any questions? That's what I have questions.
Why must we use sun? Why can't we just sunlight. But what's the difference between sunlight and why can't that light give us vitamin D?
I think the main difference here is about the UV light and the amount of like UV compared to in the sun and in sunlight compared to normal like ceiling lights, right? And furthermore, you don't get things like melatonin that's important for your own body's health. That's the exact reason why we think it's important that you get sunlight directly from the sun.
Let's give applause to the Honourable Einstein for the answer on time. Anyway, to all those who did the physical project, please remember that later after this particular event, the school will actually help you to keep the event, your models up in the bilik Rjukan. Okay. So, all right. So let's proceed to the next solo group. All right. It's not a group of students, but it's individual work. That's the Icarus Helios project. All right. So let's welcome.
Okay, good day to everyone who is involved and also attending today. My name is Mok Wayong from Gamma, and today I am going to be presenting about my project, the Icarus project or the Helios project. So let's begin. So I'm pretty sure you all heard the briefing. Rjukan is situated in between two mountains, one large, one much taller than the other. So for half a year, they would not receive sunlight. This period, I would like to call it as the dark period. So in order to combat the dark period, they have thought of a concept to reflect the sunlight which is at the top of the smaller mountain into the town. It's been over 100 years until it is finally being installed in 2013. However, it does manage to reflect the sunlight into the town, but it only covers the town square. It cannot cover the entire town. So, my solution, just replace the convex mirror. Other than other solutions, this one is, I chose this kind of solution because it's the most sensible. It is much different from paint. Right ray in disperse the light because of its curvature. Depending on the angle it's hitting, it would really disperse the light in a lot. So to show this, I draw a ray tracing of such lens, calculating the worst case scenario. So first, mirror we're using there is 7 meters in diameter and 3 meters in terms of focal length. This is according to scale, by the way. So over a distance of 100 meters, 50 if the radius is covered would be around 109 meters. And considering we're calculating worst case scenario, we're going to be only taking the area at the bottom where the town would be. So 50% of the survey area would be taken into account. So following this calculation, around 18,617 meters square would be covered in a distance of 100 meters. If it's in a distance of 450 meters, the radius would be quadruple the size, and the survey area which is covered would scale up rapidly. So it would definitely be enough to cover the entire town. Now, I chose worst case scenario because we do not want a situation in which we are in which the plans we've created is too little for the town. It's much better to have more than what's needed in order to cover any hiccups. Now, why I chose the convex mirror is just by the simple fact that it's very easy and also very cheap to install. So the town would be able to afford it. So the town would be actually able to get it up and running very quickly. It's also very easy to maintain in a longer period of time, and thus will be much easier for the economical state of the town. Also the fact that I'm just replacing the plain mirror will definitely cut the cost of trying to build another station for it. If you have any other questions, you may ask right now. I will try to answer the best that I can. So, do you have any other questions? Anyone else? Then that will be all for today. You are willing to.
All right, so thank you to Wayang. Right. Yes, because dia memang ada 10 minit lagi. Please do take note that the main purpose for the PBL project is actually for you guys to solve it. So whether the model is big or small, that's another case. Alright, whether it's attractive or not. The most important thing is the idea of trying to get more sunlight. Wayang still have 10 minutes, and the teachers requested him to explain regarding his model. So I'm gonna pass back to him.
Sorry for the small blunder, but if you are willing to come over here and see, because it's not really easy enough. What I have right here is a concept model of what would be a superstructure with its mirror housing for one of the structures for the station. If I had a plain mirror, I will show you the comparison. But you can see here, depending on the angle the light hits, it disperses even more. It's not that easy to see, but you can see it. If it's a plain mirror, the size would be consistent. If the surface covered exponentially, depending on what angle I'm looking at. And you can see I'm only moving again over here, which is why I chose the convex mirror. I did not choose the lens because it actually makes the light very dim. So a mirror would be more practical. If it's too dim, you can have another lens next to it. It focuses on the same area. Because there is more light on one area, it actually makes it brighter. So you can right, that's it for today.
All right, thank you so much, Wayang. Okay, so we have already presented 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, and now we are down to the last group. I would like to remind students that I do obey Newton's third law. My favorite physics law is Newton's third law, and I did mention to you guys, respect your friends as how you wish to be respected. You started to discuss already. All right, so give the seniors for Form 5, that one is something that I can't control. They are actually preparing to arrange for their listening SPM. So that one I can't control, but what I can actually help is actually for you guys to keep quiet and respect and give them the focus and attention that they deserve. All right, so please focus to their presentation. Anyhow, this is the last group for the project today. And without further ado, let's welcome the 9 Amigos.
No, come this way, come this way. No, que cerrado. Oh, guys, that side, stay that side.
Are you guys ready? Are you guys okay?
Yes.
Hello. That's okay. Good afternoon to our dearest judges, teachers, and friends. We are the 9 Amigos, and we're from Omega, Alpha, and Gamma. Today, we will be presenting about Rjukan, Norway. The problem statement of our project is how do we reflect the maximum amount of sunlight over Rjukan, Norway? So now, I'll be passing it to Raminajit to explain the solution.
So good afternoon, everybody. So now, first of all, I would like to thank all the other groups for stating the past efforts that Norway has done to improve the situation of Rjukan. So we have come up with a totally new idea where we built 3 statues that has an average height of 75 to 50 meters tall. These statues contain lenses and mirrors which will diverge and reflect the light. So there are 2 types of statues that we're deciding to build. The first one is Olav II of Norway, which will be 75 meters tall. The second one is Saint Einstein, which will be 60 meters tall. The location of these statues will be, which is the Olav II of Norway, will be at Rjukan Square, which is in the middle. The second one will be at Brogata 4B. And the third one, which will be at Swobodian 3. Now, I would like to explain about the base of the statue. All right. So as you can see on the screen, the first one, the quadrilateral base, is for the first statue. If you have been to KLCC, you will know that there are some offices and departments down there as the base of the building. The same concept we're going to apply here, and because Rjukan Square has the town hall and other structure, so we're going to convert that into something like this. So the town hall is going to be under the statue. For the other 2 statues, it's going to have a hexagon base. And as we have searched out, the space that we're going to build in is actually empty. So yeah, now I would like to pass on to Tarani to continue.
Okay. Darling, can you hear me? Clear? Loud and clear? Okay. Thanks, Ashish. Today, talking about the physics concept related to statues. Saya orang pasti akan ingat bagaimana boleh jadi, how can it work? How does this work, like, building statues? How is it going to reflect light? How are the town people across the town are going to get light? That is the most important thing. And now, before I get to the concept, sebelum saya memberitahu teori yang berkenaan dengan physics, saya ingin beritahu apa barang yang kita akan gunakan untuk membuat ini. The things that you're going to use. The main thing is, I've seen some groups using optic fiber, very good, that's not pure. Some groups using simple concave mirrors, it's also good. But we are not able to use optic fibers because it might be kind of expensive. So our plan here, the first one we have is bioconcave lens. Lens bioconcave. Okay. Bioconcave lens is a type of lens that diverges light. Adakah lens boleh lihat kat sini? Aku telah disebabkan. Ada jenis lens. Lens yang kedua, the second lens is known as a plano concave lens. Okay, what is the difference between bioconcave and plano concave? Bioconcave akan melebarkan lampu secara sederhana. Manakala plano concave akan melebarkan lampu secara tidak tepat. Dia lebih banyak dalam melebarkan lampu tersebut. Okay, Agnes, please go to the next one. Very specific. Okay, about meniscus, why did we choose meniscus? Apakah keistimewaan kangkang meniscus daripada kangkang lain? Okay, as you guys can see the drawing in meniscus over there. Satu part is C, one part is C, and the other part is A. Please show that one part is concave lens and the other part is convex lens. As you guys can see the ray over there, one part is convex and the other part is diverse. So what you can see from this, apakah kita boleh lihat daripada ini? Daripada ini kita boleh lihat maximum amount of light can be converged and at the same time maximum amount of light will be diverged. Itulah kita boleh dapat daripada menggunakan kangkang meniscus. And the last one, which is later. Okay, this is not the lens. This is practically a simple layer, tetapi ada keistimewaan ciri-ciri. Apakah keistimewaannya adalah it is very good in reflecting the rays 100 degrees. I mean, not 100%, but nearly to 99%. It has the ability to reflect the sun rays. That is why it uses all this type of lens. Now, I will show you guys apakah konsep kita, apakah theory kita dengan menggunakan statue and also how are we going to connect light. So, Agnes, can you please go to the statue? Thank you. Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you. Good job. Daripada lukisan yang kalian boleh lihat di sini, and we are planning to implement lenses on the certain parts of the statue body. For example, let's say I have a statue of the belly. Okay, I have a statue of the belly. My hand part is just going to be lens. We are not going to use cement or bricks on it. As you can see, I've labeled over here. The Christ is going to be plano, meniscus, bioconcave. The body part is also going to be plano and meniscus. So in certain parts of the body, we are going to implement this. Okay, and the base part, the base part is Helios. Helios will be the short room. But now I will show you guys how it actually works. And also the top 2 days after okay. One day is reflected day. Reflected day is one day is reflected day. And the other day is diverging day. Okay, I'll be using these two colors for you guys to differentiate between which day and which day. Okay, as you guys can see the mock-up here, can you all see this mock-up here? Yes or no? Yes, okay. As you guys can see the mock-up here, and thank you to the previous teams for giving a very good introduction about Rjukan. You were not able to do it, but to the rest, thank you so much. We have placed the statues not in 90 degrees, bukan dalam arah 90, tetapi arah 60. So they go like this. Yes. Okay. This is the simple area. Ini project ini dan apa yang saya akan mengenalkan dan membicarakan adalah hanya berasaskan teori. Berasaskan praktikal hanya boleh dilakukan oleh kerajaan berbeza. Okay? Kita baru break service bangsa dan kerajaan berbeza. So kita hanya boleh beritahu perasaan diri. Okay, sekarang all of us know what is the property of sunlight. We all know what does the sun do. Okay, it gives us light. Okay, now asking us a question. Adakah sunlight sinaran cahaya matahari sustain something? Is it only pointing towards one place? No, right? Malaysia gets sunlight at the same time India gets sunlight. China gets sunlight. How come? Because the scope of sunlight rays is extremely big. Get the light of the sun. Any places, you will get it by the sunlight. So the big thing is not over here. As I think it's not reflective, I'm going to have lens. That is for the problem. The reflected ray will be on the sun mirrors. Can you see the sun mirrors in your installed over here? The sun mirrors. It will keep the sun mirror. And right now the problem in Africa is only reflecting. Cahaya itu hanya berpantulan. Dia tidak bercampur, dia tidak disebabkan. Untuk cahaya tersebut dipakai kita telah membina patung-patung seperti ini. Okay, now I will tell you guys what is happening. As I said, we are using manuscript, bio content, and cover content. When this light ray is the fire mirror, apabila dia dipantulkan, cahaya akan disebarkan melalui patung tersebut. The statue, the lenses in the statue is able to diverge the light. So this is the current theory. So when the sun moves, the interaction between already there. Okay, so the next part is the case of the statue part you did. I will pass it to 15 minutes.
So, there is days below the statues. Hello. Okay, so after explaining the Helios, it is actually placed below the statue, where the excess amount of sunlight is reduced in the television technology. Okay. So the Helios is a renewable energy technology where it unlocks all of the sunlight and uses it. So the aim of this television technology is actually to replace with fossil fuels. As you can see from the tower, it's surrounded by all these tiny little things. The tower is actually called sunlight refractory tower. Where it's surrounded by all these tiny little things. This thing is usually a mirror. These mirrors have automotive motor where you can automatically rotate and face the area by the presence of sunlight. So the sunlight will be reflected exactly the target of this sun. When it's concentrated, when it collects a lot of sunlight, so it's converted into electricity. So there's two benefits that we can get from this produced electricity. Firstly, it will be supplied to the industrial, residential, and commercial places in Amigos. And secondly, we will also use this electricity. This electricity will go to important electrolyzer when studying chemistry, that positive force and negative force. This electrolyzer will split water into oxygen and hydrogen. So the oxygen is the key character for this equation. This molecule can be replaced for natural fuels and can use for transportation in arterial disease. For example, we can use the hydrogen gas pumps. We can build a few hydrogen gas pumps in Rjukan. For example, on cars using hydrogen gas as a fuel is Toyota gas and inside and the excess of hydrogen can be converted to ammonia and used as a fertilizer for plants. So, in conclusion, using Helios technology is far more better and eco-friendly compared to fossil fuels. And now I'll be passing to Lester.
Lester, ask permission from the judges to continue.
Thanks, Vishal. Now I'm talking about the effects of sunlight. What you mentioned according to the phase shift hypothesis. In this hypothesis, hello. Hello. Hi. Okay. Now we're talking about the effects of lack of sunlight on humans. For humans, it's according to the phase shift hypothesis. In this hypothesis, it will cause your circadian rhythm to become disordered. Your circadian rhythm is basically your natural clock. It repeats roughly every 24 hours and it's your sleep wake cycle. In this disorder, it will delay the release of melatonin hormone. This hormone is used to make you feel happy or feel good. It is depression, loss, or loss appetite to eat. Other effects are weak bones, weight gain, and skin problems. Why weak bones? Because the person lacks vitamin D and calcium. That's all for us. Tonight, Amigos, thank you.
Regarding that sun refinery, so what you're trying to say here is you're converting electricity and sending them to the residential, industrial, and commercial on the spot. You do not redirect them to a, say, a much safer location. The big problem here is that you're collecting solar and in not one but two areas. What happens?
Any other papers?
Okay. Okay, for the rest of the students, right, my question was whether the solar power generated or convert to electricity will it be to, how to say, the power for the rest of the Rjukan town. Actually, that particular question is more on Form 5 chapter on electricity, electromagnetism, right? Whereby when the power generated too high, we will actually use a step down transformer, right, to divert. But anyhow, the idea comes from here. I'm sure that the detailed part will be further discussed later on. Alright, so our main purpose of this particular project was spreading more light. The discussion for if you want to get the PBD for electricity and electromagnetism, we will discuss that when we reach chapter in Form 5 syllabus. Okay. So anyhow, once again, we have already concluded with 5 groups. So before we end, judges or teachers, do you guys want to say anything to them? GKB, that's a sign. Malaysia. Class, settle down, please. Once again, we thank Sheikh Kamara, Sheikh Eliza, and Sheikh Aisha, and also one okay. Let me summarize up. Yes. Okay. I'm gonna say bye to the Google Meet students already.
On top wants to see them.